Hello, I'm Faith Jones from Fresh Lemons Quilts, and I am so excited this month for you to receive my Spectrum pattern from Pattern Drop. My Spectrum quilt uses one of my favorite quilting elements, the flying geese unit. The units are staggered and rotated. I used a rainbow design, as you can see. I used various shades of each color for each column. One thing that would be really fun to use in this quilt would be ombre fabrics. I use different cuts and that can really add up, but if you use a half yard of ombre fabric for, say, one of the color columns, you'll get a lot of different shades and it's a lot of bang for your buck. My favorite ombre fabrics out right now are Vanessa Christensen's Metallic Confetti Ombre from Moda Fabrics. Because of the negative space in this quilt, there's a lot of quilting options. I chose to quilt with a free motion meandering design over the entire top. That is sort of my go-to quilting pattern, but there's a lot of other things you could do. You can use the same meandering pattern, but only quilt in the white space. That will leave the flying geese units a little poofy and let them really shine and stand out. Another fun option would be using a diagonal straight line quilting crosshatch using the edges of the flying geese as your guide. I can't wait to see your fabric choices and quilting designs that you choose for Spectrum. I look forward to following along in the Pattern Drop Facebook group. When free motion quilting, I use the Bernina stitch regulator. There are a couple options with this. I use mode 2. When I stop moving the fabric, the stitch regulator actually stops sewing. I start trying to get into kind of a smooth motion. Sometimes it helps if you play music and kind of go with the beat, but it's really just about taking it easy, getting into the zone, and if you feel yourself starting to tense up, don't be afraid to stop. Don't go too fast. Your stitches will be uneven if you go too fast and then too slow. That's actually the nice thing about the stitch regulator, is it tries to keep those stitches even, and I find that it really does on my quilts. You can see better here in the darker fabric the stitches. And again, if you need to take a break and stop, that's perfectly fine. If you're getting a little tense, shake it out and then keep on moving. I really like free motion quilting because, as you can see, this is a 12 by 12 inch block I was going to make into a small pillow. And in the 2 minutes that I made this video, I basically quilted half of it. So it's a really fun, easy way to quilt. It's pretty quick, and I really like how the quilts crinkle up with this technique of quilting. Pebble quilting is a fun, free motion technique. It involves creating little circles that you go around 2 or 3 times usually. And basically I'm going around these twice on this sample. And after I exit the second time around, I start a new circle that bumps up against the previous circle that I've made, or a seam that I don't want to quilt on the other side of. I used this technique in my cross-point quilt and vintage quilt revival. I created bubble quilting or pebble quilting just in the 4 corners of the quilt. I will say that this technique is pretty labor intensive and it uses a lot of thread. So on that quilt I had 4 corners and I basically did 1 corner each day for 4 days. I was just getting pretty sore from it actually. And you can get a little tense. This quilting technique involves a little more thinking. What are your next moves? So don't be afraid to stop and take a break and kind of plan out where you want to make your next pebble. When straight line quilting on my Bernina, I often use the dual feed system. If not, I use my walking foot. I never like to take the time to mark my lines on my quilt. It's just a personal preference. So I often will do the first line lined up to a seam, and after that I'll use the lines I've already quilted as a guide, and I will pick a spot on my foot. You can see these are quite close together, so I picked one of the inner indentations on my foot and I lined the previous quilting line up to that as I continued to sew.